How to get faster at the Rubik's Cube tip number 2. Today's tip is about the cube itself.
My first point is how to solve the first cross. Now, my first tip would be to always solve the cross on the bottom, but if you're still using a fairly beginner's method, then I recommend solving the cross on the opposite hand to whichever handed you are. So if you're right-handed, then solve the cross to the left. My second tip is something that actually made me solve the cube in a completely different way. I used to look in Expenditure Time for the easiest cross. So if there was, like this, if there was 2 blues already done, I would look of how to finish off the blue cross. But I now know that was a mistake, because you should always start with the same cross. So I solve, for instance, I solve the white cross first and then work upwards. My reason for this is because when I do F2L, I find that white is easier than yellow for me to spot when I'm looking ahead. A sort of follow-on tip from that is that you should learn the colour scheme of your cube. Now, not all cubes are the same, but this colour scheme is how it should be, with white opposite yellow, blue opposite green, and orange opposite red. And the best way to think about it is if it's clockwise, you should have red, white, blue. If you solve the 4x4, you should already know this, as you have to position the centres yourself. The other reason that it's good to know the colour scheme of a cube is for doing the first cross, because you may get a case like this, where you have half of the cross already set up, and it can very easily be completed into a full cross without much trouble. If you know the colour scheme, you know that green is to the right of red when doing white on the bottom, then you know that you can just put the green in like that and turn it later once you've finished. And finally, one more tip about the cube itself, and I know everyone says it, but it is true. Lubricating your cube will make a difference. I didn't believe it at first, but once I did, it did reduce my times, and it has continued to. So you may not want to start, because then it gets expensive. It's even more money buying certain lubes, but if you're in the USA or Canada, I know that Jigaloo is readily available there. If not, then use a simple silicone spray, or buy simple lubes off of websites and get it imported in. Like this is the one I use. It's just a simple, small 15ml tube which costs about £1.20. Like I said, the only problem with that is you do have to wait a bit longer. And then one more tip is that you should never ever use Vaseline. Some people used to say it, and after time has gone on, more and more people have realised that it is not a good option, and I can vouch for that, as it ruined my first Rubik's Cube. Okay, so I hope these tips have been helpful. Please subscribe, like, and let me know what you want me to do next. Happy cubing!